Algebra 1 students to the Chapter 3 review sheet. Let's jump right into this. First of all, numbers 1 through 8. Actually, numbers 1 through 22. So the first 22 problems that we are going to do are all solving equations. Okay, so here we go. Let's solve. Step 1, simplify both sides. Nothing I can do. Next, eliminate fractions. Nothing I can do. Next, move your constant terms to one side, variable terms to the other side. And then lastly, get rid of your coefficient. And there's not one. Well, if you want to put a 1 there, you could. But if you divide by 1, you still get 11 either way. So the answer is y equals 11. If you put 11 right here, 11 minus 15 is negative 4. Number 2, simplify both sides. Can't do that. Next, eliminate fractions. Next, move constant terms to one side, variable terms to the other. And we're left with negative 3, positive 7, positive 4. If you put a 4 right here for x, a negative 7, positive 4 is a negative 3. It checks. Number 3, simplify both sides. Next, eliminate fractions. Next, move your constant terms to one side, variable terms to the other side. Positive 25, positive 35 is 60. Over here, we're left with, now be careful students, don't just put C, okay? It's negative C. So there's really a negative 1 here, even though we can't see it. So we divide both sides by negative 1. A positive divided by a negative is negative. And over here, your negative 1's cancel, giving you C. So C equals negative 60. Now, another way to look at this is, there's a faster way. If I have negative C here, what I can do is I can change this sign over here as long as I change this sign over here. And of course, positive C is the same thing as C. Either way, you get the same answer. If I were to put negative 60 in for C right here, I have negative 35, negative 60, which is negative 35, positive 60, which is positive 25. It checks. Alright, number 4. First, simplify both sides. Nothing I can do here, but over here I have a number with two signs. A negative makes the number become positive. Next, eliminate fractions. Next, move your constant terms to one side and your variable terms to the other side. And there we go. Negative 11, you owe 11, you owe 15, now you owe 26. There's your answer. Right here for Z, if I put negative 26, I would have negative 26, negative 15, which really means negative 26, positive 15, which equals negative 11. Okay? Checks. Number 5. Okay, step 1, we are going to simplify both sides. Next, eliminate fractions. Well, I have a fraction here. I have a negative 12 in the denominator, so I'm going to multiply the equation by negative 12. Negative times the positive is negative. 12 times 36 is 432, and negative times a negative is positive. 12 over 1 times a number 12. Your 12's cancel, leaving you with with h, and so there's the answer. H equals 432. And if you were to take 432 and put it in for h right here, hold on. Did I make a mistake here? I think I did. Yes, I did. Sorry, guys. A negative times a positive is negative. Okay? And then over here, a negative times a negative is positive, positive h. So the answer is negative 432. And by the way, students, you can see now how important it is for us to check our answers. By me checking our answers, I found a mistake. So many h's. If I put negative 432, a negative over a negative is positive. 432 divided by 12 is 36. So 36 equals 36. It checks. Okay, students, moving on to number 6. Step 1, simplify both sides. Next, eliminate fractions. So we are going to multiply the entire equation by 3 because my denominator is 3. Now, back here, my denominator was negative, so I multiplied everything by a negative 12. Here, I mean, if you want to use a negative 3, you can. If you don't make any mistakes, you'll be fine, okay? But I just don't like to use negatives unless I have to, so I'm going to use a 3. And here we go. 3 over 1 times 2 over 3. Your 3's cancel, leaving you with 2 over 1, which is 2. And of course it's negative because a positive times a negative is negative. Okay? Then we have a positive times a negative is a negative, and 3 times 70 is 210. Next, move the variable terms to one side. Excuse me for a second, please. Move the variable terms to one side and the constant terms to the other side. And then next, get rid of your coefficient. So I divide by negative 2. A negative over a negative is positive. 210 divided by 2 is 105. Okay, now let's check our answer real quick. I have negative 2/3 times w times 105. Let's see. It should equal negative 70. Let's see. 3 goes into 105 35 times, and look at that. Negative 2 times 35, negative 70. It checks. Alright. Number 7, simplify both sides. Next, eliminate fractions. Next, move your variable terms to one side and your constant terms to the other side. And then next, divide by your coefficient. A negative divided by a positive is negative, and 72 divided by 6 is 12. Now from here on out, students, I'm not going to keep checking these for you, but I want you to know on a test or a quiz, it's really a good idea to check your answers. Alright? Number 8. First, simplify both sides. Next, eliminate fractions. Okay? Now, I have a denominator of 4 and a denominator of 6. Alright? If I was trying to find a common denominator, and I'm not, okay? But if I was, what's a common denominator for 4 and 6? 12. So I'm going to multiply this equation by 12. Okay? 2, get rid of my fractions. 12 over 1 times y over 4. 4 cancels into 12 3 times. We get 3y over 1, which is just 3y. Now, 12 over 1 times 15 over 6. Your 6 cancels into 12 two times, and we get 30 over 1, or 30. Next, get rid of your coefficient, and we're left with 10. Alright? And if you put a 10 here, 10 over 4 equals 15 over 6. That's true. Reduce this, you get 5 halves. Reduce this, and you get 5 halves. Alright? Number 9, simplify both sides. Next, eliminate fractions. Next, constant terms to one side, variable terms to the other side. Bring your 26 over, make it a negative 26. And you're left with negative 9p equals negative 27. Lastly, get rid of your coefficient. Negative divided by a negative is positive. 27 divided by 9 is 3. Alright, so the answer is 3. Number 10. First, simplify both sides. Next, eliminate fractions. My denominator is a 5, so I'm going to multiply the entire equation by 5. And here we go. 5 over 1 times 4 over 5. Your 5's cancel, leaving you with 4 over 1, which is 4. And of course, don't forget your c. 5 times negative 12, negative 60. 5 times negative 32, negative 160. Okay? Next, constant terms on one side, variable terms on the other side. Bring your 60 over, make it positive, and you're left with 4c equals negative 100. Get rid of your coefficient. Negative divided by a positive is negative. 100 divided by 4 is 25. So your answer is negative 25. And trust me, if you put negative 25 in for C, you would get negative 20, negative 12, which is negative 32. Alright, number 11. First of all, simplify both sides. Next, eliminate fractions. So I have a fraction with a denominator of 4. I'm going to multiply the equation by 4. 4 over 1 times 1 over 4. Your 4's cancel, leaving you with y over 1, which is just y. 4 times 2 is 8. And 4 times 0 is 0. Now bring your 8 over, make it negative, and y equals negative 8. And that is the correct answer. Alright, moving on to number 12. Okay, students, first of all, simplify both sides. So, negative 2, multiply through the parentheses, negative, times the positive is negative. 2 times 4 is 8. Negative times the negative is positive. 2 times x is 2x. Bring down your negative 7. Do not multiply the negative 2 times the negative 7 because the negative 7 is not inside the parentheses. Okay, next, eliminate fractions. Next, oh, you know what? I'm sorry. We have not yet finished step 1. Step 1 is simplify, and we still have some more simplifying to do. Constant term, constant term. So you owe 8, you owe 7 more. Now you owe 15, negative 15, positive 2x equals 5. Now on to step 2, eliminate fractions. Next, constant terms on one side, variable terms on the other. And we're left with 2x equals 20. divided by 2, and x equals 10. Alright, moving on to number 13. First, simplify both sides. R term, positive 6, negative 9. That's a negative 3 with the r. Bring down your constant term, and there we go. Next, eliminate fractions. Next, variable terms on one side, constant terms on the other. And we're left with negative 3r equals positive 3. Next, get rid of your coefficient. So r equals negative 1. A positive over a negative is negative, and 3 over 3 is 1. Alright? Moving on. Simplify both sides. Obviously with the 16, nothing I can do, but over here on the right side, we can multiply the 5 through. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times negative x, negative 5x. Next, eliminate fractions. Next, constant terms on one side, variable terms on the other. And then lastly, get rid of your coefficient. And we're left with negative, because that positive over a negative is negative, and 11 over 5 is 2 1/5, or negative 2.2. Moving on to number 15. Step 1, simplify both sides. Negative times a positive negative, 2/3 times 6 is 4, because 2 over 3 times 6 over 1, 3 cancels into 6 twice, 4 over 1 is 4, it's negative because we have a negative times a positive. Okay? Then we have a negative times a negative is positive, and 2/3 times 2 would be 4/3 a. Alright? Now, next, we're done simplifying. Next, eliminate fractions. I have one fraction with a denominator of 3, so multiply everything by 3. 3 times negative 4, negative 12, 3 over 1 times 4 over 3. Your 3's would cancel, leaving you with 4a, and 3 times 6 is 18. Next, variable terms on one side, constant terms on the other. So we're left with 4a equals 30. Sorry for yawning. Divide both sides by 4. 4's cancel, leaving you with, now, 30 over 4 is not an acceptable answer. You have to reduce it. So you can put 15 over 2 for an answer, or you could put 7.5, or you could put 7.5. Any of those are fair game. Okay, students, moving on to number 16. I simplify both sides. I have a negative 4 here. I'm going to multiply through the parentheses. So, bring down your n. Negative times a positive is negative. 4 times 1 is 4. Negative times a positive is negative. 4 times 5 is 20. And then bring down your negative 2. Notice, students, the only thing that was multiplied by a negative 4 were terms that were inside the parentheses. Okay? Now, we're still not done simplifying. I have an n term here and an n term here. So put an n, positive 1, negative 20. That's negative 19. Bring down your negative 4. Next, constant terms on one side, variable terms on the other side. Negative 19n equals positive 2. Divide both sides by negative 19. These cancel, and your answer is positive over negative is negative 2/19. The decimal for that would be negative 0.105. So either one of those two answers, students, would be acceptable. Okay, number 17. First, simplify both sides. So here we go. Next, eliminate fractions. Next, variable terms on one side, constant terms on the other. So we're left with 24 equals negative 12c. Next, divide by negative 12. And c equals negative 2. Positive over negative is negative. 24 divided by 2, or divided by 12, is 2. Alright? Moving on. Step 1, simplify both sides. Next, eliminate fractions. Next, variable terms on one side, constant terms on the other. Equals 15h. Divide both sides by 15. These cancel. H equals 2. 30 divided by 15. Alright? Moving on. Okay, step 1. Simplify both sides. On the left side over here, I have an A term and an A term. Positive 24, negative 10, that's positive 14. Bring down your negative 8. Over here, take your negative 2, multiply it through. Negative 2 times a positive 4, negative 8, negative 2 times a negative 7, positive 14a. Next, eliminate fractions. Next, variable terms on one side, constant terms on the other. Bring this over, make it negative 14. Bring this over, make it a positive 8. These cancel. These cancel. So, now we learned this when we studied the chapter, students. When all of your variable terms cancel out and all of your constant terms cancel out, the answer is all real numbers. In other words, any number that you want to pick satisfies this equation. Okay? Any number you want, the answer is all real numbers. Okay? I also allow students to put infinite solutions, and that's fine too. Alright? Number 20. First, simplify both sides. The right side cannot be simplified. We have a constant term and an R term. Over here, take your 9, multiply it through. Positive 9, negative 5, negative 45. Positive 9, negative R, negative 9R. Next, eliminate fractions. Next, variable terms on one side, constant terms on the other. And we're left with negative 35 equals positive 7R. Now, divide by 7 to get rid of your coefficient. You're left with R over here. Negative divided by positive is negative. 35 divided by 7 is 5. So the answer is negative 5. Number 21. First of all, simplify both sides. Take your 2/3, multiply it through. 2/3 times 3 is 2x. 2/3 times negative 9 would be negative 6. 4 times x, 4x. 4 times 6, positive 24. Next, eliminate fractions. Next, constant terms on one side, variable terms on the other. Positive 2, negative 4, negative 2, positive 24, positive 6, positive 30. Divide both sides by negative 2. And your negative 2's would cancel, leaving you with negative 15 for an answer. Moving on to number 22. First, simplify both sides. This side over here cannot be simplified. I have an m term and a constant term. They are unlike terms. Over here on the right side, again, bring down my 10, take my negative 6, multiply it through. Negative 6 times 2, negative 12. Negative 6 times negative m, positive 6m. But hold it, we're still not done with simplifying. On the right side over here, constant term, positive 10, negative 12, negative 2, positive 6m. Next, eliminate fractions. Next, variable terms on one side, constant terms on the other. And I'm left with 0 equals 1. Now, listen carefully. We studied this in your chapter. Anytime your variable terms cancel out and the constant terms do not, then the answer is no solution. Okay? So let's review for a second. If the variable terms cancel out and the constant terms cancel out, we get all real numbers. Okay? If the variable terms cancel out and the constant terms do not, then I get no solution. Now, what if the variable terms do not cancel out, but the constant terms do? Well, that's no big deal. Just divide by 2, and the answer is 0, because 0 divided by 2 is 0. Okay? Know these, okay, guys? So our answer is no solution. All right? Moving on to number 25. We have some decimals here, and solve these three equations. First of all, simplify both sides. Nothing I can do there. Next, eliminate fractions. Next, variable terms on one side, constant terms on the other. And we get 14.6. Over here we get 5.6t. Alright? Now, on these on these decimal equations like this, on the test, you are more than welcome to use your calculators. That's fine. These cancel with my calculator. I'm going to take 14.6 divided by 5.6, and I get, rounded of course, 2.6071, but the direction is saying to round to the nearest tenth, so this 0 tells me to leave my 6 alone. So my answer is 2.6. Number 26. Okay, step 1, we're going to simplify. Take your 4.6, multiply it through. 4.6 times 2 would be 9.2a. 4.6 times 3 would be 13.8. Okay? Over here, there's no simplifying we can do. We have an a term and a constant term. So next, eliminate fractions. Next, variable terms on one side and constant terms on the other side. Over here, we would get positive 5.5a. Over here, UO and UO, so it's still negative, and you would get 14.2. Now, divide both sides by 5.5. These cancel. A negative over a positive is negative. And then 14.2 divided by 5.5 would give us 2 negative 2.58, 1 repeating. Okay, this 8 here tells me to raise this 5 to a 6, so negative 2.6 is the answer. All right, number 27, simplify both sides. Take your negative 6, multiply it through. 6 times 5.61 would give us a negative 33.66x. Negative times a negative is positive, and 6 times 3.21 would give us 19.26. Next, eliminate fractions. Next, variable terms on one side, constant terms on the other side. So over here I'm left with negative 33.66x equals negative 14.51. Now, divide both sides by negative 33.66. Cancel here. And let's see. Negative divided by negative is positive. 14.51 divided by 33.66 is 0.43175. On and on. This 3 tells you to leave the 4 alone, so the answer is 0.4. Alright, numbers 28 through 30, solve for the indicated variable. So, for number 28, we're going to solve for h. First, simplify both sides. Next, eliminate fractions. Next, find all the terms that have an h, get those on one side, and all the other terms to the other side. Now that's done. Don't forget 2 pi r and h are all multiplying. So that's one term, okay? And this is one term. So all of the terms that have an h are on one side, and all the other terms are on the other side. So lastly, just simply divide by your coefficient. Cancels, 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 leaving you with h. Over here we have s over 2 pi r. And that's it. You're solving for h. You know you're finished because h is all by itself. 29, solving for r. So step 1, simplify both sides. This is a big S and a little s, so they are different. Pi s times r would be pi s r. Pi s times little r would be pi SR. So there. Now, these two terms are not like terms, okay? We have a capital R here and a little r here, so they're not the same. Our simplifying is done. Next, eliminate fractions. Next, find all of the terms that have a little r, get those on one side, everything else on the other side. So here's the only term that has a little r, leave it here, bring this term over here. So s minus pi sr equals pi sr. Lastly, divide by pi s. Now be careful. Here they cancel, leaving you with r. Here they cancel, leaving you with negative r. But here, these s's do not cancel. They're different variables. That's a capital S and a smaller s, so they're not the same. So you cannot cancel them. So it stays s over pi s. And you know you're finished because you're solving for r, and r is all by itself. Number 30. Step 1, simplify both sides. Next, eliminate fractions. Okay, so we are going to have to eliminate fractions. My denominator is nt, so I'll multiply everything by nt over 1. Alright, nt times r is nt r. nt times pv over nt. Your nt's would cancel, leaving you with pv over 1 or just pv. Next step, move all of your terms to one side that have a p and all the other terms to the other side. Well, that's already done. You have one term here, one term here. There's no p in this term, and there is a p in this term, so we're good. Now divide by v, and we're finished. My answer is nt r over v equals p. So I know I'm finished because p is all by itself. And last but not least, number 31. So we want to rewrite the equation so that y is a function of x. That means we're going to solve for y. So let's take this equation and let's solve for y. Okay, step 1, simplify both sides. Over here I have 3 terms. They are all unlike x, y, and constant term. On the right side though, I have 2 times 5 is 10, 2 times negative y, negative 2y. So the right side becomes this right here. Next, eliminate fractions. Next, get all the terms you're solving for y. So all of the terms that have a y, get those on one side, and all the other terms to the other side. So I'm left with 3x, negative 14 equals negative 4. Now, divide everything by negative 4, and here we go. A positive over a negative is negative 3/4. A negative over negative is positive 7 over 2. Should be an x here. There we go. Over here, negative 4's cancel, leaving you with y. So I know I'm done because y is all by itself. Okay? Now they want us to put in some numbers for x. So here we go. Let's start with negative 2. Negative 3/4 times negative 2 plus 7/2 equals y. Negative times negative is positive. 3 over 4 times negative 3 over 4 times 2 would be 3/2 plus 7 halves, which is 10 halves, which is 5. So when x is -2, y is 5. Okay? Next, let's substitute 0 in for x. -3/4 times 0 plus 7 halves equals y. 3/4 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 7 halves is y. 0 plus 7 halves is 7 halves. So when we put 0 in for x, we got out 7 halves, or 3.5 if you want. Okay, next we're going to substitute 1 in for x. So -3/4 times 1 positive 7 halves equals y. 3/4 times 1, -3/4 plus 7 halves equals y. And then if you added these two, -3/4 and then positive 7/2, you would get 11/2. And actually, students, that would be 11/4. There we go. So when I put in 1, I got out 11/4, or you could say 2 3/4. Alright? Lastly, let's substitute 5 in for x. So I have -3/4 times 5 plus 7 halves equals y. Negative times the positive negative, 15/4 plus 7 halves equals y. And if we combine these, and we get, I believe, -4/4, which is -1. But let me check that real quick just to make sure. And I think I made a mistake here. Yes, I did. Sorry, students, trying to do that in my head. Let's see, it would be a 14, be a -1/4. There we go. So, when you put in a 5 for x, you got out a -1/4. Okay? And that's it, guys. Listen, I hope this review sheet hope video's been a help to you guys. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to call